Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's broadcast. I'm back in my more familiar role as interviewer this week, and we're continuing with a series of meeting the orchestra's principal players. And it is my great pleasure to welcome this week my colleague, the principal bassoon of the Marin Symphony since 1998, Carla Wilson. So, hi, Carla, and welcome.
Hi, Alasdair. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you here as well. I'm looking forward to finding out a little bit more about you. And why don't we start with what is going on in your life these days?
Well, I'm having fun doing a lot of yoga. I have been doing yoga for a really long time. And so when this first happened, I started doing more because some of my favorite teachers are much more accessible than driving places. And I've been doing a lot of hiking. I live near Tilden Park, and going into nature, even when I don't need to exercise, is wonderful. And I like playing ping pong and poker with my son, who lives with me. And I have an amazing vegetable garden that I have never planted a vegetable garden before, so I got help starting it, and it's really been feeding me all summer. It's just amazing. I love cooking. So
that's fantastic. That's quite a patchwork of interesting things you've gone on there. So I have two questions. One, poker with the sun. Who wins?
I have started winning for the first time ever. So I don't know what's going on. So he would always win before. Like I would think I was gonna win and be losing, and then I don't know. It just changed. I'm getting a little better.
You're smartening up. That's clear. Yeah. And the other thing was yoga, which I have done from time to time. I haven't done it regularly in a while, but I was when you mentioned that, I was just curious because so many as musicians we use our muscles and these in sometimes unnatural positions, and it's not exactly the most comfortable thing generally to play a musical instrument. Have you found that that the yoga has made any difference in your playing? Do you feel more at ease sitting and using those muscle groups, or is it just a wash, or doesn't make any difference?
Oh no! So you do yoga too? Oh.
I have, not regularly. Years ago, I used to do the Bikram, the hot yoga.
Oh.
Been a while.
Well, it does help keep your core so that you're able to sit up when you're playing an instrument. And the bassoon is quite large, and it keeps my strength. I think it's very strengthening. And the kind of yoga I've gotten interested in the last few years is Kundalini Yoga. It's different than what I started with in the 70s. And I also became a certified Kundalini Yoga teacher, which I have done a little bit of teaching, but not during this online time yet. But breathing, the Kundalini, and there's also a lot of music in that. So I have pulled my bassoon out for some of the events, but there's really a lot of breathing in that. And I think I've been able to do some longer phrases since I've been interested in that type. Yeah.
Excellent. So no need to do the circular breathing, which for those of you that may not know it's a little bit of an inside term. Some wind players are able to literally play, which usually involves exhaling air but breathing in at the same time. It's a very weird party trick, but apparently not necessary for this kind of yoga.
Our contrabassoon player can do that, David Granger.
No kidding.
I know that does circular breathing, actually.
So speaking of the bassoon, let's go back to something that always interests me, and that's your origin story. How did you start playing the bassoon? Did it choose you, or did you choose it?
Okay, back to the beginning, huh?
Sure.
Well, I was already doing a lot of music with, we had hymns in my church, and then I took up the auto harp, and then the piano, and there was a lot of music in my family. Both my father played the guitar, and my mom was a wannabe musician, and later she became a banjo player that she did professional banjo. And then when I was playing sax, tenor sax, the bassoon was handed to me, and I didn't know what it was, but I did take it up and learn how to play it in the band. But it
Was
wasn't
this in
until,
high school? Was this in high
yeah,
school?
it was seventh grade.
Uh,
But it wasn't until high school when I got into youth orchestras that I got, that it completely changed for me. Before it was just sort of separate from me, but that was an amazing opportunity playing in YPSO and Oakland Youth Symphony and East and Contra Costa County, where I'm from. There was also a little orchestra there, and so that's how it got started for me. But music, what really was second nature in my family, where we were all playing instruments, and so I was already doing a lot of music.
it sounds similar to my experience. I say that it was always part of the furniture. There's just natural
Yeah.
sound to have around one, so it felt just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So obviously you grew up in the Bay Area, and at what point did you realize that this is something that you wanted to do for your life, for a career?
Well, I was kind of going along on a wave for a while because I did have a lot of success. I was playing the Mozart Bassoon Concerto in all those orchestras because it was turns out it's a pretty good instrument to pick up if you won a lot of opportunities. So I won some competitions for solo to play concertos, but then that continued on when we were in Scotland actually. With YPSO, there was an international festival of youth orchestras in Aberdeen, and
I played at that.
you did?
Yeah, the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain as a kid. I wonder if we were there at the same time. That would be hilarious.
Really? And so I got to play Mozart Bassoon Concerto there, and then I won this audition for Emile Milan also got this a 6-month study in London while I was there. I got the I won the award when we did a concert at the Royal Albert Hall to end festival. So I went to a year at State, and then I used my scholarship. So I was 19, and then I went to London for 6 months and studied, and that was really good. But then when I came back, I just wanted to be a normal person. So I told my teacher, Walter Green, that I wanted to quit. So I got a job in a newspaper, and I was classified advertising manager, and then it didn't feel meaningful to me. But they were about to promote me, and I said no, I'm going to go back to school. And then some people started asking me to play bassoon in their chamber music, and then I thought, okay, I went from normal person to I'm going to go gung ho bassoon. So I think of it as that moment in time where I decided I'm going to go gung ho. So I went to the conservatory and got a degree, and started getting called for some big boy work. We call it the big boys.
Yeah.
LA.
Well, that's so interesting because it just belies one of the things that we almost think is stereotypical, is that one has to be immensely and unwaveringly focused from the tiniest, from the smallest age all the way through. That's the only way to do it. But I think it's a really interesting path that you haven't been afraid to make some detours on the way.
Yeah, I think that's good. I kind of wonder what it would have been like if I would have stayed and taken the promotion and been an office person. But I think I'm really glad that I think music has been a great life. I feel like I've had a really good career, but I'm not done yet.
I should certainly hope not.
I'm still playing, and I'm really excited about some of the things I'm doing right now, actually. I got my bassoon work done, and I've got a good read going, and I'm getting ready to play a woodwind quintet concert that's
Great.
10 feet apart, but I'm learning the music for it, and it's going to be professionally videotaped, but it's a concert.
Excellent.
And then choro music I've been playing.
Mm-hmm. The bassoon itself, obviously as you probably know, I'm from the other end of the woodwind section as a flutist, but it always struck me as a flutist that the bassoon had a particularly complex plumbing system. And I'm wondering, you said you had the instrument worked on. I mean, are there just things that you're always looking at because the keys are set up in a certain way, or Is it more complex than other wooden instruments? Certainly in terms of its acoustic properties, because of the length and all of that, it has some unique challenges in that regard, does it not?
Yeah, and then you've got the bassoon reed to boot.
Well, I wasn't even going to say that, but since you mentioned it, let's talk reeds.
But yeah, there's all these keys that are just for the thumb alone. That's pretty complicated looking, don't you think?
I sure do.
I don't know if you can see that, but
no, it can very
2,
clear.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 keys just for the thumb alone. But there's a lot of key work, and it's it's 3.5 octaves worth of notes. So some people call it a tortured instrument. So that's a challenge, making music out of that thing.
What is your average time a week that you might spend making reeds?
Well, I have been buying reeds that are called blanks that are already made. So that's just a regular part of practice. Right now I have one I like that I recently started working on, but I don't, a lot of my friends I stopped making them from this. I'm buying the blanks already made, which I still have to work on with a file and get them just right. So
right. So now it sounds like you're sounding a little less, how can I say, a little more laid back than most oboists that I talk to, around whose lives reeds revolve the whole time. Now you play all over the Bay Area, not just in the Marin Symphony, but with many other groups, and most of the time in the same role as you have with the Marin Symphony is playing principal, where you're one of the solo wind instruments that get all the big solos. But on occasion, you also play second. And so I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about the differences, how that feels, first of all, in terms of your psychological setup for playing first or second. And then in a practical sense, how does playing second in an orchestra differ from playing principal?
If I can remember back when I played in orchestras, Carla Wilson plays with me in 2 of the orchestras, 3 I play in, and I play principal on 2, and she plays principal on the other. And I always really enjoy playing second, although it is harder to play second because it's harder to get the low notes out.
Right.
But I feel like it should. I wish sometimes the solos could be traded back and forth between principal, but I guess you get paid a little more on principal sometimes because you're on the hot seat and you get the solos. But so that's a fun part, and you're in the higher register, and then you get the standing ovations. But
always nice.
Yeah, second is a whole different thing where you're listening to blend, and they get to be in charge. You learn from them, you let them lead. I like that just as much.
It seems that
are hard to get out.
What was that? Sorry.
If it weren't for the low notes that are so hard to play in tune.
Right, because paradoxically it gets harder to really nail the notes the lower you get, right? Particularly if the chord is soft.
Yeah, it takes more air and more control, and they tend to be sharp, and so you're having to drop down onto the floor to get them to be lower.
Right. Pitch is, of course, such a concern for woodwinds. We, as woodwind players, we spend so much time making sure that we're playing in tune with one another, but it all seems to begin with the fundamental. That's how a chord is built from the bass sound. So in a sense, the second bassoon is critically important, because if the fundamental isn't right, then whatever is built on top of it, you're building on a shaky edifice. Do you find that extra pressure? Is it harder to play from that point of view as second?
Yeah, the intervals, it is harder. The intonation, I haven't had to worry as much about intonation lately, so I forgot kind of.
Are you worried that when we all get back that none of us will remember what in tune means? We're going to have to reinvent the wheel? God, I hope not.
It's good for my students because I have to make them get their tuner out, because it's really hard for me to tell on Zoom if they're in tune or not. I just kind of have a sneaking suspicion that they aren't.
Now, Carla, you've sent us a musical excerpt that comes, I believe, from your front porch. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yes. Well, I invited my friend Jane Lenoir over to play duets on my porch, and she happens to be a Brazilian flutist, and she pulled out some music of that genre, and I really enjoyed it because it's classically inspired and it's easy to read, and but it has a fun Afro-Brazilian melody rhythm. And so I've been practicing that, and it's been a fun way to learn a new kind of music, and to I've even played my scales to a recorded drum app, and that's been a fun way to get playing. And then we got invited to open an online Brazilian conference sponsoring Brazilian tech companies. And then also we've played on the porch at my house again, and we've played at this festival or event called Coachella in Albany, where we raise money. And it's just been fun, a fun way to play the bassoon. I was just really delighted that I could read the notes. I didn't have to improvise, plus I could play it. It's sort of like Scott Joplin rag.
Well, I have to say, Coachella sounds like an awesome name for for an event. Full mark for that. This sounds like a wonderful piece. I can't wait for you to be able to share it with everybody and to listen to it myself.
Yeah, the composer is called Pixinguinha, and the piece, this is just a section of the piece called Disciplinte, which means careless. Cool.
Well, great. That's great. It's been so nice to chat with you today, Carla. I want to thank you for sharing stories about your life and your music, as well as your extracurricular activities, and of course for sharing this particular piece, this choro, this piece of music that you're going to play for us now. So thank you, and I hope very much to see you in person as soon as we all can get together again.
Very nice talking to you, Alasdair. Thank you.
Thanks.